There we go. Sorry. I'm Debbie Skipczynski, the president for 2019. Seated at the podium with me at the front is our finance secretary, Ann Phillips, our second vice president, Eunice Glover, Eric Toomer, who is our first vice president. To my left is Melissa Moore, our recording secretary, and Jim Martin, our parliamentarian. Also in the room is Richard Rao, who is our recording secretary, Terry Ross, who is chair of the Committee on Council, and is there anyone else I need to recognize? Okay, I think we've got everyone here. For those that are joining us for the first time, APAB is an official city board and a representative body of the 25 NPUs, with each NPU having a single vote. Each NPU chair must formally notify the Office of Zoning and Development and APAB of their official delegate and alternate, and only these delegates or alternates may vote. I'm saying all this because if you've been selected or elected a delegate and your name was not on the sign-in sheet, it means that your NPU chair did not make that notification. So I'm going to ask you now and a little later in the meeting to make sure you nudge your NPU chair to do so. I have some forms that I can share with you for your NPU chair to use. So that we can keep to our 2-hour time frame, I'll be recognizing only delegates and alternates to speak throughout much of the meeting. Others may ask questions following each presentation today and during public comment at the end of the meeting. If you wish to speak, please come to the podium and identify yourself by name and NPU. Comments made from the floor will not be picked up by Channel 26, and quite frankly, I won't hear them either. So if you're not recognized, that's the reason why. Please keep all comments germane to the topic being addressed and respectful of everyone in the room. I'll be watching the time and may need to cut off discussion at some point so that we can get through our entire agenda. I hope you understand. This is my first meeting, and as I said earlier, and so expect it to be a little rocky. We will have a debrief following the meeting, so if you have any questions or concerns about how the meeting took place today, please come see me at the end of the room, and because we want to definitely improve our meeting. Is Mr. Webb in the room? Yes. We need to start our meeting off by the swearing in of the 2019 officers. Mr. Fortis Webb, who is the municipal clerk, is here to do that, and I believe he's going to do that in 2 parts. There we go.
Thank you. Again, good morning, Madam President.
Morning.
Madam President, if yourself and the first vice president and the second vice president could rise. I would ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Swear or affirm that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties imposed upon me by my election or appointment as the president and vice president of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. I have not, in order to influence my appointment to this position, directly or indirectly, expressly or by implication, promise my vote or support to any person in all things pertaining to my position. I will be governed by what is my conviction for public good. I further swear or affirm that I will uphold and support the Constitution and laws
Constitution and laws
of the United States,
of the United States,
the state of Georgia,
state of Georgia,
and the city of Atlanta.
and the city of Atlanta.
I further swear or affirm
Further affirm
that I will uphold and support
that I will uphold and support
the ethics code of the city of Atlanta.
the ethics code of the city of Atlanta.
Thank you for your service. Ms. Patricia Marshall from my office will circulate 3 oaths that you need to sign. One will be for your personal record. The other 2 will be maintained in the office of municipal clerk. Now, secondly, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Will the other members of the board please rise? As previously stated, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, swear or affirm that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties imposed upon me by reason of my election or appointment as an officer of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board. I have not, in order to influence my appointment to this position, directly or indirectly, expressly or by implication, promise my vote or support to any person in all things pertaining to my position. I will be governed by what is my conviction for public good. I further swear or affirm that I will uphold and support the Constitution and laws of the United States, the state of Georgia, and the city of Atlanta. I further swear or affirm that I will uphold and support the ethics code of the city of Atlanta. Thank you so much. You may be seated. And if I could take a moment of personal privilege, Madam President.
Yes.
I'd like to thank all of the board members, the appointed officers, as well as the additional APAB members for your continued service to the citizens of Atlanta. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Mr. Webb is going to do a short presentation in just a few minutes. As soon as we do the roll call and accept the agenda and minutes from the previous meetings. Madam Secretary, do we want to do a roll call, please? See if we have a quorum.
This is my first time doing a roll call, so if I mispronounce your name, please correct me loudly. Thank you. All right, roll call. NPUA Delegate Brinkley Dickerson. Alternate none. NPUB Richard Raw. Alternate Dr. John Muzzy. I gotcha. I gotcha. NPUC Zach Gober. Alternate none. NPUD James Martin. Here. Melissa Moore, present. NPUE Jim Schneider. Alternate Brian Harris. NPUF Debbie.
Present.
No alternate. NPUG Ola Reynolds. Alternate Sonia Hodges. NPUH Barbara Hubbard. Alternate Charles Shelton. NPUI Jennifer Freeman. Alternate Eunice Glover. NPUJ Benjamin Dickerson. Alternate Al Bartel. NPUK Lita Harmon. No alternate. NPUL Jennifer McIntosh. No alternate. NPUM Michelle Schreiner. Alternate Rashid Muhammad. NPUN Amy Stout. Alternate Catherine Woodling. NPUO Carl Holt. Alternate Marcus Owens. NPUP Rasheen Hunter. Alternate Hope Hoffman. NPUQ Eric. Alternate David Getachew Smith? Gatasha, thank you. NPU-R Alfred White. Alternate Harold Hardnett. NPU-S Chris Brown. Alternate Nick Hess. NPU-T Terry Ross. Alternate Donovan Dodds. NPU-V Columbus Ward Jr. Alternate Stephanie Flowers. NPU-W Jack Grunler. Alternate Steve Carr. NPU-X Michael Hopkins. Alternate Reuben Burney. NPU-Y Dana Scott. Alternate Chris McCord. NPU-Z Ann. And alternate Sharita Grant. And that is it. Cool. Madam President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. In all the years that I've come to APAB, I think this is the first time we've had a quorum at the beginning of our meeting. So congratulations all. Thank you for being here. The first thing on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions? May I have a motion to adopt the agenda? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The minutes, actually the highlights for the November and December 2018 meetings were distributed through the meeting announcement, as well as have been on the table. Are there any changes or additions to either one of those? You want to do that in one motion or two motions? Okay. So is there a motion? Is there a second to the motion to adopt the November 2018 highlights?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great. And you want to restate your motion for December? Is there a second?
Second.
Second, great. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. The minutes have been received and adopted.
Madam President?
Yes.
Have we approved the minutes? Or have we approved the agenda, rather?
Yes, we did that just before we approved the minutes, while you were signing your forms. Okay? Okay. While we don't have any appointments to consider today, we do have 6 vacancies on the Atlanta TADAC. The Advisory Council, APAB, is allotted 13 positions. Currently, we believe 6 are vacant. We've had, or around? 5 are now, okay. Thank you, Nathan. 5 of 12, okay. At the front table, I've provided a description of those jobs and would ask, is there anyone here that has previously sat on TADAC, if they just want to say a few words on what would make a good candidate and what would be required for the position? Jim, do you want to address that?
Sure. I currently serve on TADAC. The most important qualification is to be available on Tuesday afternoons after 4:30. Basically, if you're involved in the community, you live reasonably close to the Beltline, and you have a pretty good idea of what's going on or would like to, and have the time and willingness to serve both at those hours and doing some homework, your participation would be appreciated. Not every Tuesday afternoon, one Tuesday a month.
Okay, Mr. Rowe?
I just wanted someone to clarify for people that are listening what the requirements are, if there are any geographic constraints, or if it's a citywide opportunity for those vacant positions rather than something by quadrant or whatnot.
I believe it's citywide.
Mr. Soldat, do you want to come to the podium and answer those questions? We want to make sure we have good information. And if you'd introduce yourself, thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. My name is Nathan Soldat. I am a Community Engagement Manager for Atlanta Beltline, Inc. I'm also the staff liaison for TADAC. There's several appointing bodies, but from APAB's perspective, previously APAB makes the appointment, and the questions that I'm typically asked is the individual involved in their MPU, showing up on a regular basis, and that's generally been the criteria that's been looked at in the past. There are other appointing bodies as well. You don't have to come through APAB. There's the Atlanta Public School System, Mayor's Office, the Council President, the City Council, Fulton County, and the Beltline Network. So there's openings in most of those appointing bodies as well. Feel free to go to beltline.org/TADAC, TADAC, and the membership is almost up to date. It changes on a regular basis, so we'll actually update it again probably about a week or two from now.
Great, thank you. Hey, Mr. Rao, can you go to the podium so that others can hear? Thanks.
Someone already representing your NPU or your section of town, does that mean that you should not apply for this?
Okay.
Or does it
Question.
mean that you're welcome to apply for it?
Sure. From the APAB appointment standpoint, there's not a requirement that only one individual could represent an MPU. With only 12 slots, I mean, it's at APAB's discretion, and of course, the most diverse geography we can cover, I think, is the best.
Yeah, Mr. Toomer.
As I understand it, there is a section in the bylaws that handles the appointments, and I believe that we had clarification and discussion on that the last time the bylaws were redone, and it does state that we can pull from any geographic.
Right. For our appointments, that's correct. Okay. And now, just as a final comment, I'm going to be working with the Office of Zoning and Development to help us advertise these vacancies. It's a good number of people that we're responsible for, so we want to make sure that we can get it out to all the NPUs and that we've got good information going out. So thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda are resolutions. We have none for consideration at this meeting, and so we're going to move to presentations. Mr. Webb, did you appreciate your being here today? Most of us know you by the vote is now open.
Thank you, Madam President, and I'd like to thank everyone for having me in today. And I didn't have a formal presentation, however, I just wanted to address the board itself. As previously stated, my name is Forrest Webb III, the municipal clerk for the City of Atlanta. The municipal clerk is appointed by the governing authority, the governing authority being consistent of the Atlanta City Council. The committee of purview in which the municipal clerk reports to is the Committee on Council, which is chaired by Ms. Jennifer Ide. The staff in the Office of Municipal Clerk has a combined 15 years of service. As an average, there are 10 staff members. The Office of the Municipal Clerk is charged with being the custodian of all legislative actions of the governing authority, along with attesting and sealing all City of Atlanta contracts. Specifically on premises, the municipal clerk's office currently has 12 years of resolutions or communications and ordinances. Anything beyond that are housed at the Atlanta History Center. We're the custodian of records dating back to the 1800s for the City of Atlanta. The municipal clerk is also charged with maintaining and codifying the code as well as the charter for the City of Atlanta, which is periodically amended by the governing authority. The staff for the municipal clerk's office also manages the city council meeting, staffs the city council meeting, and also maintain all votes on all items. There are 3 sequences by which the governing authority conducts themselves or operate within. The first being the code and the charter. that are the rules in which the council must govern themselves. The secondary document would be the actual rules of council. And that is a document that also fills gaps that aren't necessarily addressed in the code or the charter. The third document, which the governing authority governs themselves with, is the rules of order, Robert's Rules of Order, rather. And Robert Rules of Order is the prevailing document should the code or the charter or the rules of council not address a particular issue. As of this year, the City Council has currently obtained the services of a parliamentarian. And the parliamentarian assists the municipal clerk, as well as the president, as well as the members of council, as well as the law department during the legislative proceedings of the City Council. Additionally, a few known, not as well known things about the municipal clerk's office. The clerk's office maintains all the affidavits for building permits. Building permits are held in our office separate and apart from the procurement process and the application process, which is upstairs on the third floor in the Bureau of Planning. Additionally, one can apply for a domestic partnership in the City of Atlanta, and that is facilitated by constituent services. The execution of those certificates are housed in the Office of Municipal Clerk. Additionally, the municipal clerk serves as the election superintendent for the City of Atlanta, and a dual role, which is separate and apart from the routine reporting role of the municipal clerk. The municipal clerk, as the superintendent, serves as the qualifying officer for all City of Atlanta elections and or referendums, and in addition to that, for any proceedings such as challenge hearings. In 2019, the City of Atlanta has one scheduled municipal election. A special election filled the vacated seat of the late Mr. Ivory Lee Young Jr. in District 3. That election will be March the 19th, and the runoff will be April the 16th if necessary. Qualifying for those, that particular seat will be next week, January 23rd, 24th, and 25th. There will only be 3 days of qualifying. The qualifying dates are mandated by the state of Georgia, and simply the superintendent will select which date is best for his or her municipality. In this case, the decision was made to have the election sooner rather than later. Having had that decision made, there will be no early and advance voting. And that is not an intent to disenfranchise any voters in District 3. However, currently, the cost to conduct the election is $256,000. Should I have made the decision to have early and advance voting, it would be upwards of $1 million. So I felt it was prudent to make the decision that we would not have early and advance voting. And I felt it was necessary to address this body, to put it out in the public. I've already published as such, but I just wanted you all to know. And if I could take a moment of personal privilege, as I previously alluded to before, I appreciate the service of the APAB members. It's something that is not always recognized, but is a labor of love, and it's something that is acknowledged within the City of Atlanta. And personally, I'd like to thank you, as well as the viewing audience, as well as the members that are here presently, for affording me, as the municipal clerk, to afford to provide a very good lifestyle for my children and my family. I've been with the city for 30 years, and I'm proud to say I'm a City of Atlanta employee. That concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to make?
I have a question. I've been asked by several people about the rules for public comment at council meetings. Are those in the rules of council document that you mentioned?
They are.
They are.
And currently it's been amended. It was amended at the end of last year. And the current rules are that each public speaker has 2 minutes to speak. In addition to that, a former elected official has 6 minutes to speak. A current elected official from another jurisdiction, he or she has 10 minutes to speak. When it comes to ceding one's time, previously you could cede up to 16 minutes. Now you can only cede and defer time up to 4 minutes. So at any particular time, be it a citizen, be it a former elected official or a current elected official, you will only have 10 minutes to address the city council during public comment. And I would like to add one other thing. It is not known that each council person, when they deliberate on a regular basis during the committee, during the full council meeting, they are only allotted 10 minutes. That's not anything, we don't ring a bell. I will time them, or a staff member will time them, and when they get to 8 minutes, we will give them a note, letting them know politely that you have 2 minutes remaining to speak. And if I could, have I answered your question?
Well, I was told that public comment was not permitted on matters that had had public hearings.
That would be a zoning issue specifically. You cannot address any zoning matters during the full council meeting. And I'll go a little bit further and explain that historically. There were complications and some legal matters that arose several years ago with some of the elected officials, so as to take the elected officials out of the loop of being influenced or having significant impact when it comes to zoning matters. That's why you have now the ZRB, which is an independent group from the Atlanta City Council, and they receive the recommendations, that being the governing authority, receive the recommendations from the ZRB, which is facilitated to the zoning committee. Have I clearly articulated that?
I think
for
so,
you?
yes, thank you.
And Madam President, I'd like to mention one other thing that I didn't mention earlier. Effective in 2019, the municipal clerk's office will not charge any City of Atlanta citizen for routine documents that one may request of our office. We felt it necessary to waive that fee. We will still provide an invoice for the purpose of if any individual exceeded $75 in a calendar year, then we feel it necessary to charge you 10 cents per page. But prior to that, it is not my intent to nickel and dime any citizen that has already paid his or her fair share of any taxes in the City of Atlanta. And also, this has been a practice that we've done periodically. I see Mr. Carr is here. Routinely, he'll request information, and he'll actually have it mailed to his house. So I'm not trying to make money off of any citizen that has already paid his or her fair share of taxes. And two other things, let me give you the contact number for the municipal clerk's office. That contact number is area code 404-330-6032. That is the main line. And I'm a public official, so I will give you my direct line. Or you can get it from Mr. Carr. But my number is 404-330-6031. And should you need to email the municipal clerk's office, the email address is municipalclerk@atlantagA.gov. And currently, we do not have an independent website for the municipal clerk's office. Hopefully, we will have one later this year, but we do have an election website, which is located on the City of Atlanta's main website, as well as the Atlanta City Council's website, and there's a banner that says 2019 special election. And any questions and concerns that you may have, hopefully I've been able to articulate that and make that available to you. And just because you do not live in District 3 doesn't mean that you don't have an interest, because District 3 is one district that comprises your Atlanta City Council, which is collectively 15 council members, 12 specific districts, and 3 at-large members. Thank you, Madam President.
Great, thank you. Mr. Carr, did you have a comment or question?
I'm out of dimes, but here's my nickel. Put this in your. My question to Clerk Forrest Webb is, can a resident of District 3 vote in absentia or absentee ballot, or do they have to personally show up?
I'm glad you raised that question. I should have made that very clear before. There will still be absentee ballots available. You'll still be able to vote absentee prior to the election. There will just not be any physical early and advance voting. Thank you, Mr. Carr, for raising that question.
Okay, Mr. Toomer?
Yes. I raise this question only out of concern. The fact that you are not doing a early vote in terms of being a steward of our money, I think that's really great. But I wonder the ramifications of the message that you might be sending to people that are opposed to early vote for various reasons, that a monetary concern is enough reason not to have early voting. And
Well,
I'm kind of being the devil's advocate on this, and I trust me, I do appreciate the fact that you are and what you have done, but I just wanted to raise that. What is your opinion on that?
As I indicated before, I just gave you what my rationale was for it. In addition to that, the voting attendance for special elections historically, I did not mention that. I looked back at some of this historical data that we had, and this historical data shows that for special elections, specific to a one district race, is somewhere less than 20% voter turnout. And subsequently, to put a full staff in place for early and advance voting, it's just not prudent. And it would reflect low voter turnout as well historically, and that's all I have to go by. I can only go by historical data. And the data itself speaks for itself. And I understand that there are going to be people that are opposed, and that's why I'm trying to be transparent. And I have it on the City of Atlanta's website. I have it on our calendar. That is also a public document via the website. And I've come before you. I've also addressed it in Committee on Council. And I just feel that being open and transparent and allowing citizens of the City of Atlanta to know what is actually going on, and then to actually give a reason, which I'm more than happy to give any time I make any decisions. I'm not running from anything. So I understand that there are going to be people that's going to be upset, but there will still be a statutory requirement, which is absentee voting, and that is required by law. And one other thing, the early and advance voting isn't required when it comes to special election. That can be a discretionary decision.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Webb, thank you so much for being here, for swearing us in, and giving us a part of your Saturday. Thank
You're quite welcome. Thank you all.
We have a second presentation today, and from the Atlanta Beltline, I'd like to invite Beth McMillan and Nathan Soldat to the podium.
Good morning to your newly elected board and membership of APAB. Thank you for having us today. We are delighted to be before you to give you an update on the Atlanta Beltline. My name is Beth McMillan. I am Director of Planning, Engagement, and Art for the Atlanta Beltline. And with me today is Nathan Soldat. You met him earlier. He is the Community Engagement Manager, who is the liaison for TADAC, between TADAC and the Atlanta Beltline. So we have a very short presentation, and we are open for questions at the end.
Great, thank you, Beth. As Beth mentioned, we have a short presentation because we want to make sure that we address the issues through questions that people want to hear from. So what we're going to do is briefly go over what is the Atlanta Beltline. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and we want to make sure we're sort of grounded on the same page. That being said, this is a presentation that could go an hour for a 101, so I'm going to breeze through it a little bit. We also have maps outside on the table if you want to take some material home and review it. So the Atlanta Beltline is a very complex, nuanced project, but at its core, I like to say that it is essentially a project connecting neighborhoods 45 or more throughout the city of Atlanta, a transportation project utilizing historic railroad corridors, which are mostly inactive at this point, not entirely, 22 miles around the city of Atlanta. And the intention is to connect those neighborhoods through a number of transportation and transit investments, including 22 miles of light rail or streetcar, roughly 22 miles of trail with an additional 11 miles of trail connectivity into neighborhoods. We consider the Beltline as a place in the connectivity and fabric of the city transportation system that needs to be, you need to be able to get to it. So essentially, in addition to those spur trails, we work with the city to create complete streets or streets that are available for all users of all types and of abilities. So those are 46 miles of complete streets or streetscapes to and from the Beltline. We have a park mandate and green space mandate of 1,300 acres of new space, as well as 700 acres of revitalized green space. There's a tremendous amount of environmental cleanup that goes with the project, both in the parks and the corridor, the rail corridor itself. There's a tremendous amount of economic development impact, as well as job creation that comes with the project around these public spaces. We also have an affordable housing and housing mandate as a whole. We have a goal of 5,600 affordable units by the time the project finishes in 2030. And in addition to that, the entire project is enhanced with public art accessible to all of the citizens of Atlanta and beyond. About a year ago, we reset our vision and mission statement, and I won't read both of them to you because of time, but I do want to at least set the tone for what we are striving to do with our vision, which is very, very lofty, and it's certainly not something we can do by ourselves, but it's important to set that lofty vision to reach for, and that is to be a catalyst for making Atlanta a global beacon for equitable, inclusive, and sustainable city life. So very important. And with that, I will turn things over to Beth to really kind of recap what we covered last year, which is a lot of work.
So 2018 was a monumental year for the Atlanta Beltline. We were able to secure the southern crescent, and that is the portion of the trail that will connect Glenwood over to the west side at Metropolitan, just below Metropolitan Avenue. We were also able to secure the Kudzu line, which is approaching northeast of the Atlanta Beltline, on the Atlanta Beltline, and that is important to get us up to and close to the active rail that is currently functioning in that part of the geography of the Beltline. We, realizing the importance of affordable housing, there was a vice president of housing that was hired last year. His name is Dwayne Martin, and he is attuned to increasing the numbers of affordable housing units that are produced on the Atlanta Beltline. The Atlanta Beltline also participated in the city's housing initiative, where all people and groups doing affordable housing work came together and made recommendations as to how not only the Atlanta Beltline, but the city of Atlanta could address the affordable housing crunch that is being experienced. We also did a well, it says closing, but we did a groundbreaking on Adair Court, which is over on the west side, which is a senior living opportunity that is under construction. In addition to hires, we hired a chief equity and inclusion officer, hence the work to make this an inclusive and equitable project for all people around the Atlanta Beltline and the city of Atlanta. We are also doing some equity training with the staff at the Atlanta Beltline so that everyone, not just the equity officer, but all employees of the Atlanta Beltline recognize and implement equity, and inclusion in the projects that they are responsible for. This is exciting for me because it falls under my direction. We launched the Beltline University, and on Friday, the letters to the students who will be a part, the first 35 students went out, and we are pleased to say that they are represented from around the Atlanta Beltline. That was the first requirement or criteria, is that we wanted people who were within the Atlanta Beltline neighborhoods. Now, there are some that are outside because this is a city project. The last hire for 2018 was the Vice President of Branding. The brand Atlanta Beltline is important to the organization and to the city of Atlanta, but also the catalytic project that we are has impacts not only here in the city of Atlanta, and we want to be at the table where big ideas are being discussed, because we are a big idea, but you also get to hear big ideas from other people that can influence this project. We did a community business survey. About 80% of the people who responded to the survey think that the Atlanta Beltline is still a worthwhile investment and support the project. We got the word out on the Moore Martyr referendum, and because of your participation in those community meetings and being very outspoken through your communities, the Atlanta Beltline project was awarded dollars in the tune of about $1 billion for the completion of the Atlanta Beltline. Now, it's not $1 billion at one time, it's over time, and so we have to work with those pots of money as they become available. The Northeast Trail is currently under design from 10th and Monroe, moving north from that point. That's about an 18 to 24-month process. And once it is a little bit further along, we will be back out to the community to talk about that design process. We've been out a couple of times, but we allow the consultant to do the work and to bring what he has heard back to the community when he's at 50% and then 80% and then complete. Anoda Park, a park over on the west side, is also under design. It should be wrapping up by the end of February. The design process should be wrapping up by the end of February or March, and we will go back to the community. We heard lots of great ideas from that community, and a lot of those ideas were able to influence the design of the project. The East Side Trail Extension Part 2, which gets the East Side Trail down to Memorial Drive, is underway and under construction. It's underway and under construction, and we are anticipating perhaps a spring opening of that trail. For the 6th year in a row, I believe it was, don't quote me on the number, the Atlanta Beltline 2017 audit was completed, and we had no findings, which means it was a clean audit. And we were, I'm sorry, it was 2018, and we were very happy about that. We like to think that we are great stewards of public dollars. And on the street today, there is a request for proposals for Murphy Crossing redevelopment. Murphy Crossing is the old State Farmers Market on the west side, and we are hoping to get very dynamic designs in from developers who would like to be a partner in the development of that particular piece of property. And with that, I will close, and Nathan and I are available for questions.
Mr. Bartow.
Yes, Madam President, members of the general body, and
You want to introduce yourself first, please.
good idea. Al Bartell, chairperson of NPUJ, and also the committee chairperson of the APAB Transportation Committee, which is where my question is going to be coming from. The asset of the Beltline, we've seen quite a bit of activity as a public recreation asset, as a hospitality asset, an environmental asset, and a community engagement asset. What we're interested in is what are the benchmarks, if any, for it being a transportation asset. The more modern communication of $1 billion hit is noble as a concept, but given that the state and federal agencies are now meeting to redesign their relationship to the MARTA and the airport, we want to know how that $1 billion commitment is going to be redesigned, if any, and do we have any benchmarks that you can communicate to the APAB Transportation Committee that we can begin to look at to continue to have the Beltline be a transportation asset as well as a public hospitality asset?
So stay close so you can ask me those two questions again. I would venture to say that the Atlanta Beltline in its trail status is a transportation asset. If you're out there any day, most days, there are people walking, biking, and now e-scootering out on the Atlanta Beltline. And people enjoy it not only for recreation, but they use it as a tool of transit, of transportation. They take it to work, they take it to school, they take it to get to places of entertainment. So I would say even as a trail asset, it is a transportation asset. But I do get what you are getting at with regards to transit. Transit work by the Atlanta Beltline is underway. As many of you may know, there is a lot of, to qualify for federal funding for transit, there is a lot of groundwork that has to happen before you are deemed eligible to apply. So we have set about 16 miles, is it? About 16 miles of transit corridor under study so that we will meet the qualifications to be able to apply for transit dollars. Once we hit those benchmarks, as you say, we would then be able to apply for federal dollars to move transit. The Beltline Tax Allocation District cannot support transit investments. It's too massive, and so it would require federal funding. And so that's where we are right now. Now, there was part two, and if you would refresh me, I'll answer it for you.
Well, part two is that, we at APAB, in the Transportation Committee, we want our work to be in line with what can we expect. And the point you made about the $1 billion hit from Moore MARTA, we don't know what those benchmarks are going to change. Are you anticipating change or different language that you're going to have to be accountable for?
So we would also use whatever more MARTA dollars we get, we would use them, whether it be for matching or to provide a local segment of transit along the corridor somewhere. And so I don't suspect that those identified MARTA dollars will change from the 16 miles that are currently under study. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Carr, please introduce yourself first.
I'm Steve Carr from NPUW. I have a couple of comments and questions. Number one, there was a recent proposed land swap in South DeKalb. There's 3,500 acres of either existing parks and potential parks, including over 500 acres that the city owns. There's been discussions between two former CEOs of the Beltline and Cobb County commissioners, and there's been no action from the city or the Beltline going to extending out trails and paths to this area. That's number one. Number two is I was delighted to hear Terry Ross's voice on a Beltline film. Terry was not credited, he was not thanked, nor was he paid. And this bothers me. If everybody else is making money, he needs to make some money too. Number three, citizen engagement. For many years, I've been a very strong and aggressive, and I use the word aggressive because I got a letter, no, I didn't get a letter. I got a phone call from a private attorney saying that I was too aggressive with the Beltline, exercising my freedom of speech, and that bothers me a lot. One of the suggestions that I have made is that there needs to be Beltline committees in each of the NPUs so that in real time, information to be given to the NPU so that they can weigh in, they can vet, they can, whatever it is, where the Beltline goes through those committees. The last comment I want to make is, for a number of years, I have owned land not only on the Beltline, but in the tax allocation district. That's TADAC, for those that haven't picked up on that. For at least 10 years, I have wanted, and I continue to want to do affordable housing. I've had zero help, not only from the city people in housing, but with the Beltline itself. I still want to do this. Here's my list.
Thank you.
I'm not familiar at all with the South DeKalb property that Steve is addressing, unless that's Entrenchment Creek. Is that what it is? And South River. It currently does not show as a project for the Atlanta Beltline. Terry Ross, I thought consented to do the voiceover for our video, but again, that didn't fall under me, and I need to check and see what happened there, but we appreciated your voice, and we get lots of compliments on it. I can't speak to the MPU committees, and affordable housing is at the top of everyone's agenda at the Atlanta Beltline. In terms of a personal or private deal, I can't or relationship in terms of development, I don't have a comment on that either.
Great, thank
Beth?
you.
I think Steve Carr would make a great nominee for Beltline TADAC, don't you?
I think anyone that TADAC, that this body recommends would be a great representative.
Very diplomatic.
Thank you. I have considered that, but also it occurs to me that this could be a conflict of interest, because
Great.
not only do I own land on the Beltline and in the tax allocation district, I own a significant amount, and I am stymied by the Beltline. So if I'm being aggressive now, I'll probably invent a cuss word or two, or more.
Thank you. Mr. Scott,
Questions of the young lady.
please introduce yourself.
I'm Dana from NPUY,
Thank you.
and the Beltline's going right through our bailiwick,
Speak.
parallel to University Avenue and heading west from Boulevard. Question, we need, and you're obviously going to do this because they already fixed the one over Fulton Terrace on the east side. My question is just the date or time schedule for the trestles over Pryor Street and Metropolitan. This summer or next year? Or?
That's a great question. I think I would just speak to the interim Southside Trail. The intention, as we've done when we've acquired other pieces of property along the Beltline, is to open up an interim trail. And what that means is a non-paved trail that is safe to traverse. Invasive plant species have been removed, sinkholes, erosion issues, and maybe most importantly, your point, bridge crossings. So ensuring that bridge handrails and whatnot are intact, and that nobody's going to fall through the bridge, of course, right? And so the interim trail condition is, the goal is to have that finished by early summer. So that is, we're currently waiting for a few more assets to be removed by CSX from the corridor as we get in there and we make that a safe condition.
Last comment.
Yes, good morning. I'm Jamal Lee. I live in the area of NPUY. I had a question about what you meant by affordable housing. Will it be income-based? Will it only be apartment units? Will it be single-family homes? How will you determine what is affordable? What is that? What does that determination look like?
So HUD determines the level of affordability for the city of Atlanta, and as such, the Atlanta Beltline uses those same numbers. Because this is a transit project and we need to have density on the corridor, what Atlanta Beltline would support within the corridor is some kind of multifamily housing. We need to bring a lot of people to the corridor because some of those people will ride the train that is coming. In the past, there has been down payment assistance used to purchase properties that were outside of the TAD but within the planning area. However, we were challenged on that, and so now TAD dollars, which affordable housing dollars are, can only be used within the tax allocation district. The TAD was carefully drawn to exclude single-family housing for the most part, and I don't suspect that the project would advocate for single-family housing within the tax allocation district, again, because we want to drive density directly on the corridor. Outside in the planning area, we support the development of single-family townhomes, duplexes within that planning area. And the planning area is a half mile on both sides of the Atlanta Beltline corridor.
I would just add one more thing, that spending more than 30% of your income on housing is considered housing cost burdened. So in terms of giving you a sense as to what's affordable, that's the first sort of lens to look at. And then you're taking the area median income, as Beth said, unfortunately for the entire metro, but that's the HUD standard, and looking at that and putting those together. So.
Would please step to the podium, please. Thank you.
Will the determinations be income-based for the people who are allowed to move into those units?
Yes.
That was a great segue question. I have heard Mr. Martin speak on a couple of occasions about affordable housing, and he does an excellent job in explaining not only the concept of affordable housing, but also how it will work on the Beltline. And we will invite him to a meeting where we can spend some good time talking with him.
Absolutely, and this will just be a plug. Beltline.org/meetings. We post every presentation, every agenda, every flyer. We have feedback mechanisms and all of our contact information should you prefer to engage with us over the phone or in person. The most recent presentation that Debbie saw, actually, from our Sub-Area 5 Master Plan update is online, and there's 5 or 6 slides in there that really give great visualizations as to what is affordable housing and what does that mean, with some examples of numbers of income, et cetera. Oh.
One of the requirements as set by City Council is that TADAC and the Beltline Affordable Housing Advisory Board do an annual report out to the public. That is set for March? Okay. Usually it's in March. And at that time, after their presentation to the public, I might suggest that you invite them to this body to present their report, since you have appointees to that committee. And I thank you for the time today and the opportunity to present.
Thank you both for being here, giving up part of your Saturday for us. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, I think let's move on to board and task force reports. I'm going to go through the list of agendas. If the appointee is here, please step to the podium if you want to make a report. The Beltline Tax Allocation District, we've been referring to that as TADAC. Does anyone want to make a report?
Yeah, I'm on TADAC. I don't know if anyone else here is. We did not meet this month because we decided to defer our monthly meeting until our annual business meeting, which will be on the 9th of February, at which we would be discussing, among other things, the annual report out that Beth mentioned. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Citizen Review Board. Do we have a representative here who wants to speak? The Code Enforcement Commission, Ms. Bush.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, since the reports require action items only, I have not been present to give any action items until today. The Code Enforcement Committee has a subcommittee whereby we are organizing a Code Enforcement Academy for the citizens of Atlanta. And the details of this academy are 5 sessions every other Saturday by city department with a start date of March 16th from 9:30 until 12 noon. The city departments included are Public Works, the Municipal Court, Zoning, Building Permits, Business License, that's just one altogether, Watershed and Fire, and of course the Code Enforcement Division of APD. The target audience includes MPUs, neighborhood associations, and interested citizens. The marketing strategy, there's a marketing committee within the subcommittee to address getting the information out to MPUs. They're going to do PSAs on Channel 26, social media, and neighborhood meetings. The training will be open to 50 participants. Application for the academy will be by way of Eventbrite and the city's clerk office. They will process the applications. Evaluation of training conducted will use, they'll use SurveyMonkey and/or a paper survey. As a senior citizen, I caution them about using some of the technology because, oh, they can do it on the phones. And I said, not a lot of people use all of their apps on the phone, so they're still fleshing this out. But that is the gist of creating this training academy. And it will be held at the Atlanta Fire Department Training Academy. Any questions?
When will the NPUs receive information about the academy?
Good question. We'll have to, I'm not on the marketing committee. We met Thursday, so I'll have to get that information back to you. They understand that the NPUs meet at certain times, and because of these city departments and the Super Bowl, they're going to work that out. But the representatives from the departments that were present on Thursday have other people in their office to do the marketing piece. So it is up to them to get the flyers out, but stay tuned.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
During the latter part of last year, the Code Enforcement Department went back to divvying up their code enforcement officers so that where we had one code enforcement officer per NPU and we could count on getting reports and all, they took them away, and now they have 3 and 4 NPUs that they are servicing. Has your committee received any information regarding the possibility that we will go back to having one designated code enforcement officer per NPU?
That was not discussed. There is a new chief of code enforcement. I believe his name is Lieutenant Mason. So I can contact him to find out about your request. However, that particular problem was not discussed in any of the meetings. I will say as a citizen that the monies that the code enforcement people collect for registration of vacant properties and so forth, that money does not go into the code enforcement budget. It goes into the general budget. And I think the general fund. And I mentioned this before. So each NPU should inform, to me, this is just my opinion, they should inform the people that attend their neighborhood meetings and NPUs to kind of get on the city council people. George Shepard represents the code enforcement of District 12, to make some kind of adjustment in terms of putting more inspectors and they do have, the Public Works Department had several other initiatives. They have a clean sweeps team and Keep America Beautiful initiative. So I will take that information back, but sometimes, and it's not anything that, how should I put this? The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. That's the best I could tell of that, because the training, and as a representative for you, I asked, okay, you're going to do this training academy, you're going to do this training book. The Mayor's Office for Innovation has created a community engagement playbook. So what's going to be different from what you're going to do, and how you're going to, you throw out all this information to the public, but how are you using it? And some of the people from the city were not aware, at least they said they were not aware of the playbook. So you see there's some, not misinformation, but a lot of the city workers are not familiar with the community engagement playbook, because a lot of citizens ask questions about the function, or they expect certain services from a department, but that's not the responsibility of that department. So that's why that community engagement playbook was designed to train people on how to use city services. So now you have this fire academy, training academy piece, which is, we have, Atlanta is growing by leaps and bounds, so trying to catch up. And plus the cyber attack has kind of pushed back court dates on code enforcement violations, so they're playing catch up on that. Is that it?
Okay. I find a lot of times that officials representing specific areas that come to the NPUs have convenient lapses of memory, and as opposed to them really not knowing or haven't been introduced to things, that is a convenience because they are not, let's say, up to date on it, or they have not done their homework, and so that's a convenience as opposed to an actual, they were not told, they don't know. And I think I've discussed this before, especially with some of the code enforcement people, that we've had issues that have been going on for years, and they will tell us at one point that it's in the probate court, and we can't find out who owns the property because it's in the probate court. Well, it just so happens that the probate judge was in the meeting, and she researched it, and they came back with the same thing in the next meeting, and they were told, no, it's not in the probate court. There is no such issue in the probate court. And so that's just to cite an example. And that's one of the things that I would really like to see addressed at some point, to have the people that are representing be prepared to actually present to the NPUs the facts of a case, or that they should have been following for 2 to 3 years in some instances. I digress. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I can say is I can take your grievances or your concerns back to the Code Enforcement Committee, because in my NPU, the Code Enforcement Officer, I questioned that, and she said, I was told to do this, and that's all I'm supposed to do. She doesn't she gives numbers, but she doesn't share the property addresses or the status of those addresses, although I have shared them with you. You remember I gave you a list of the properties that were being demolished and contracts that were in place to do some demolition, but that was the response I got from my representative. So if if the committee or the board would like to just list the concerns you have about the code enforcement process, I can raise that issue with the committee next month.
Okay, just to be quick and brief, as I promised Debbie, there is one exception to that, and that is Officer McClendon from the SWEEP project. He has been extremely responsive and very thorough to everything that we have asked of him, and I just needed to throw that out there. That's Officer McClendon.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Bush, for staying on top of this for us. Ms. Hubbard, do you have a report for Keep Atlanta Beautiful? No report, okay. I skipped the Ethics Board. Dr. Newmark is going to be here in March to give us an update. The License Review Board, I don't see Janelle here, and Invest Atlanta, I don't see Mr. Bozarth. Oh, you missed I called it earlier. Do you have a report? Can you keep it to about 3 minutes? Okay. Please come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Sherry Williams with the Atlanta Citizens Review Board, representing NPUs G through L. And the Atlanta Citizens Review Board, of course, accepts complaints for complaints against police officers and Atlanta corrections officers. And right now I have for you and for all NPUs, we have a card now that has the information about ACRB investigations on the front and the mediation process on the back. We started doing mediations about a year ago, and all of the information with the phone number and the email for the website and everything is on this card, and I'll pass them out at the end. And one of the things that we're doing to make sure that citizens are aware is periodically throughout each month we go in different neighborhoods and talk to citizens about what ACRB does so they will know and understand. And so one of the things that we're doing is called Police Interactions, where you can go online and take a quiz to see if you know what your rights are. Because a lot of people just really don't know what their rights are. And of course, the more information they get, the better off they are. So we go to libraries across across Atlanta. We also go to malls there at West End Mall and Greenbrier and a lot of different malls. And it's all on the website on our calendar so that citizens can come. And the good news is that often when staff and appointees appear to ask questions, there are people there waiting for us. So we're excited about that. And also we have 2 new investigators who have joined us, and currently we have 37 open investigations. And the top 3 allegations that we receive most have to do with appropriate action required. That includes false arrest complaints and excessive force and conduct. Any questions or comments?
Could you repeat the number of open investigations, please?
It's 37. And I need to make sure that I'm forwarding the executive director's report every month. I forward it to APAB. I want to make sure that I have the correct information for 2019, since we do have new officers.
If it's going to apabatlanta@gmail.com, then it's coming to the right place. Great. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
So about
Would
how
you
long-
introduce yourself, please?
My name is Nick Hess. I'm the chair of NPUS.
Thanks, Nick.
Just about how long does an investigation take on average?
Each complaint is different. So it also depends on whether or not the APD is doing an internal, or corrections is doing an internal investigation at the same time. So unfortunately, there is no average. But citizens have 6 months to file their complaint from the date that it occurred. And also, for those of you that are new, there's a process now for people to submit a complaint anonymously. And in the past, some people wouldn't file a complaint for they thought there would be repercussions. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you. Any other boards or task forces that I might have missed? Okay, then we're going to move to committee reports, and the first is CDHS and zoning and land use. Mr. Martin.
Yes, both committees met this past Monday. In attendance were myself, Jack Grundler, and Quinn Green. We endorsed 2 resolutions, which you should have copies of for informational purposes. The first of these, which is quite straightforward, is calling for the planning department to instruct SAP applicants not to use certified mail in sending out notifications. Currently, they provide no guidance, and the code says get a certificate of mailing, which many applicants interpret as using certified mail, which is quite often sent to NPU chairs' home addresses when they are at work. Therefore, they never see them. I had thought for a while that this was just me, but I was talking to some folks from other NPUs, and apparently the phenomenon is quite common. So, the other resolution is with regard to housing affordability, which was a hot button issue, as you may recall, the last time we discussed it here. This one should be a little bit less controversial. All we are asking for is for the planning department to provide us with a boilerplate zoning condition that we can attach to rezonings, calling for affordability where is not otherwise required. One can imagine a variety of circumstances where a community might wish to do this, and currently we have no language available to us to draft an appropriate and enforceable condition. We're working on several other things, but have none of them ready to bring to the body as yet. These 2 resolutions we are hoping will go to the executive committee next month and come back here for a vote in February. Questions? Okay.
And did you also want to comment on the ad hoc?
Oh, sorry, yes, the ad hoc committee has not met since our meetings in the fall. We are awaiting feedback from the executive committee before taking further action. But I have everybody's email address still, so if you're on my email list for that and haven't heard from me, that's why. I expect we will be meeting again in the future, but as yet we do not have a schedule for those meetings.
Great, thank you. Any questions, comments about that report? Mr. Carr?
Thank you. Conflict resolution was mentioned.
Yes.
Kyle Kessler from the Center for Civic Innovation is here, and whether that comes up under Committee on Council, because that's also one of our reference items, or standalone, I would certainly encourage, before the meeting is over, for him to make a comment.
Okay, well.
A status update.
Okay. And Mr. Martin, remind us again when your meetings take place.
Oh, sorry, yes, I guess I sort of slipped over that. As I mentioned, the last meeting was this past Monday, 1/14. The next meeting will be Monday, the 11th of February at 7 p.m., Chin Chin Restaurant, 1715 Howell Mill Road.
Great, thank you. Toomer?
Jim, I was looking for the actual, not resolution, the actual voting item, but NPUs were asked to vote on a couple of items this coming before, I guess, the full council pretty soon. And one of them was rezoning for senior citizens' homes to be allocated to R1s, basically all of the residential statutes. Are you familiar with that?
You talking about the daycare?
Yes, adult
for seniors?
daycare, yes.
I am only superficially familiar with it.
Okay.
So I probably will not be able to answer any questions you have, but you can go ahead and ask them. We have John here who might be able to answer them.
Yes, it's not really a question as much as it is a caution, I guess. Currently, you cannot have a adult daycare in your R1 to et cetera. And this would open up, even though it has some defined restrictions, it would still open something up new where you could, all of a sudden, next door to you have this adult daycare facility. And I just think that it's something to look at with caution. NPU voted on it, and we disapproved of it.
Mr. McKinley, do you want to comment?
If you had a specific question, I can address it.
Specifically, I guess I'm just really mentioning out to the board, or maybe you can express what the actual document is trying to do.
So right now, as it stands, in other jurisdictions in Metro Atlanta, adult daycare facilities are allowed. However, in the city, they're technically illegal. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that as a permitted use by way of a special use permit. So there will be a public review process. We're going to add, like you said, some regulations, put some teeth in there. So we can't have a bunch of adult daycare facilities in one neighborhood or along a corridor. And again, these are up to 6, and these are adults unrelated by blood or marriage. And this is just during the day. And these are heavily regulated by DCA. So we're just adding it as a permitted use, and the DCA will handle the enforcement.
Is there a backstory to why this legislation was introduced?
Again, other jurisdictions in Metro Atlanta allow it. We technically don't, so I'm assuming an applicant came by to, a number of applicants have come by to request this, and because we don't allow it, we felt like this was necessary.
And again, I'd like to stress just one point, and that is that it is currently not available to R1, R2, and it would open it up to those zoning criteria. So, I'm just trying to bring caution to it, I guess.
Thank you.
One thing I might ask with regard to this, but sort of a follow-on to that, but these specially permitted uses, they go through a process much like a rezoning. And one imagines that when you add a specially permitted use in a zoning district, that the reason why you do it is because you don't think that every lot within that zoning district would be suitable for that use. And so I'm wondering, in this particular case, what sorts of single-family residential properties staff would deem inappropriate for that use, or what review criteria you would use in making a staff recommendation to the ZRB?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer today, but I could definitely consult with those who work on the zoning ordinance more so and get back with you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you. Steve?
Thank you. A question that did come up at our zoning committee for W. How is the 2,000 feet measured? Is it as the bird flies, or go around the sidewalk to a crosswalk and over and under and around and so forth?
It's usually property line to property line.
As the bird flies?
Straight line, property line to property line.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
You use the word usually. That means it's not definitive.
I looked at the legislation and fact sheet. It wasn't specifically notated in there, but that's usually how distance requirements are measured.
As a
So I
case,
can double check.
I appreciate that. As a case in point, there was a bar that opened up directly across the street from Jackson High School. And the way they measured was from the entry door, which was not on the street, over to the sidewalk, down 2 to 3 blocks to a crosswalk, across the crosswalk, across the sidewalk, and then to the front door of the high school. And it barely made it under 2,000 feet, but it was directly across the street, and they got a liquor license.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to move along to make sure that we get to everyone's reports. Mr. Bartell, do you have a Transportation Committee report?
First off, because it is the beginning of the year, we do not have a resolution, but we do have a point of information, Madam President, and that is that the Georgia General Assembly is now considering redesigning its relationship to transportation management in the state of Georgia, particularly with the Atlanta Airport and the MARTA system. In effect, the management accountability for the Atlanta Airport and the management accountability for the MARTA will no longer be under the jurisdiction of the Atlanta City Council or the Atlanta administration. The committees have been established at the Georgia General Assembly. They will be meeting this year between in January, February, and March. When that data becomes available, this Transportation Committee will hold Transportation Committee meetings for input and resolution design, and keep the Executive Committee and the full body informed as the timetable for the communication of that data, collection of that data, and the circulation of that data.
Great.
That concludes
Thank
my
you.
report.
And when will the next Transportation Committee meet, or the first?
It depends on when the first data becomes available from the Transportation
Okay.
Committee, from the State House and the State Senate. I do not expect that to happen in the month of January.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm sorry, but Committee on Council dropped off my cheat sheet. Do you have a report, Mr. Ross?
Hey, good morning, Terry Ross, MPUT. Committee on Council met this morning at 9 a.m. and a couple of things. Number one, parking fees for the APAB delegates and alternatives, reimbursement, which is something that we put on the table last year. What we established is that the path to getting this completed is to increase the overall APAB budget by approximately $2,600, and then reimbursing the delegates and alternates that attend on Saturdays for reimbursement. But what we said was, let's give this to finance and ask them what the reimbursement process would look like and feel like. So, and if you could get back to me with some kind of idea what that would look like, that'd be great. Okay. Item number 2 was the MPU attendance and participation. Mr. McKinley, we're still looking for M through Z for MPU's M through Z for 2018. Okay, and then once we get that, then we can go on and get that report finalized and you get the information to you folks. Okay. Item number 3 was the APAB MPU budget for 2019-2020. As you guys know, last year we proposed that the budget be tripled to about $330,000. Ann Phillips and I had worked on a proposed budget, and the general body actually voted to approve that resolution, and so, but we didn't get much traction on it. We didn't get very far on it. So what we're saying is let's try it again this year to increase the overall budget for APAB and MPU. Ann and I, we spoke this morning. We will work out the proposed budget. Debbie was at our meeting as well, suggested that we also come up with talking points for the delegates and delegates and alternates, so that when we talk to city council members and the reps from the mayor's office, that we can all be on the same page when we propose this budget increase for APAB and MPU. So, and like I said, Ann and I will work on the proposed budget increase. What we'll be asking the general body for, 1, is support on this, and number 2, someone to take point on coming up with the talking points so that they can be distributed among all the delegates and alternates. Okay. So we'll be appealing to somebody from the general body to take point on that. Mr. Al Bartel has agreed to help on that as well. So, okay. And then item number 4 was the conflict resolution. We were just wondering what the status of that was, and Jim, you gave us the update during your report. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the report for Committee on Council. We meet next month, February 16th, 9 a.m., right here in this room. Okay.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you. Education and public engagement. Jennifer, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jennifer Freeman, MPUI alternate. And again, I want to congratulate our newly elected 2019 officers. I also would like to say to Debbie that we did, and also to the public, that Debbie and we met. I had a nice lunch, and we both were on the same page about making sure that APAB continues to the next level. So we're excited about that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to, Jennifer Freeman, by the way. Okay, I have a few announcements and also some action items. To Terry Ross, I just wanted to kind of clarify that the resolution that we passed last year was actually to propose the MPU grant budget to be increased, not the general fund budget. So it's very important that we make that distinction and that we continue to advocate to the elected officials that that is a resolution that we have passed and that we can hold them accountable to that. Also, I wanted to let everyone know that on January 1st, an end-of-the-year e-news was sent with highlights of data points of 2018 engagement, new leadership transition, the number of resolutions that were passed really from 2017 and 18, which were about 15, and then also the social media impressions as well. Carrie and I will work on a special edition e-news that will go out next week. Since January 1st, the data that we have received, well, since January 1st to date, I should say, we have had 82 likes on our Facebook page. So we are starting to really expand citizenry as it relates to making sure that the citizens know and also community groups know what we are doing. So we're increasing that number in just this year. Just this year in this month. The Marketing and Communications team will present a proposed plan for 2019 at the February 10th Executive Committee meeting. Myself, Carrie, and also Trey will be meeting with Debbie prior to that meeting. As it relates to APS, there is an Equity and Excellence at APS conversation going on. There was one held January 16th at Long Middle School, and the final conversation will be held January 22nd at Sutton Middle for all those who are interested. PTA Day at the Capitol will be February 28th, and they are asking everyone to wear red in that support of that day. If you want more details, you may visit www.georgiaga.org for more information. As soon as the Georgia PTA's legislative agenda is available as it relates to education, I will let the body know. All of these announcements have been posted on our Facebook page, and you can like us on our Facebook page at APAB Atlanta. You can follow us on Twitter at the handle APAB25. You can also sign up for newsletters at apabatlanta.org. That completes my the conclusion of my committee, Madam Chair.
Great,
thank you. You're welcome. Any questions? All right.
Yes, with regard to education, the Atlanta School Board met in a special called meeting on the 7th of January where they decided to take on massive new commitments in the city's tax allocation districts that's going to end up costing school budgets about $500 million over the next 30 years. And I just wanted to know if you were aware of that and if you'd like to comment on that in any way.
I'm aware of it, and I don't want to comment on it. You know that, Jim.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Ann, do you have a report? Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you, Sherry.
Many of you know that, I'm Sherry Williams, by the way.
Thank you.
Many of you know that I have been working with a group of education advocates since 2012 in an effort to have the planetarium at Harper Archer restored and reopened. And over the years, we've been making those efforts. Well, recently, since they said they didn't have any money, they had a meeting, APS had a meeting, and they revealed that they had extra TSPOS funds available. So they allocated $2.4 million in additional funds to Harper Archer that is now being converted from a middle school to an elementary school. And so we were hoping they would use that $2.4 million to restore the planetarium and the theater because this only needs $2.1 million. But instead, they used that money to fund concrete, asphalt, and windows. They are not using any of that additional money to help increase the academic achievement of the students. and the supporter report ran an article on it, and I think I've already sent it to Jennifer on January the 7th. That was done by Maggie Lee, and I would like for you to know your comments on that, and because that would be beneficial for the students if they would allocate that money towards STEM versus concrete, asphalt, and new windows.
Thank you.
Okay, you want my comment on why they did not use the money for the planetarium? Planetarium? Mhm. Well, let me just say this, because I'm not clear. Are you saying that they've already used a portion of that $2.4 million for asphalt and construction-related projects already, and they still have more money left over? Could you please clarify?
But I'm going to hold this conversation. Can the two of you get together and then perhaps at the next meeting or sometime during the month send something out to, because it sounds like Jennifer needs some background.
Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll include it in an update in the report next month.
Okay, great.
That
Thank
sounds
you so
good?
much.
You're welcome.
Very good. Thank you.
I want to forward it. I'll also re-forward it to you so that the rest of the board can see it, because this is a time-sensitive issue because they could reallocate the money.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Ann.
Ann Phillips, NPUZ, Chair of NPUZ. Currently, we are still operating out of 2018 budget monies. We currently have $2,028 in the general fund. You know, our general fund is given to us through the city, and our fiscal year is the same as the city's fiscal year. So starting July 1st, 2018, we received the $3,000 for the general fund. At this point, we still have $2,028 in that fund. The grant funds for 2018, we currently have a balance of $1,455. Now, the application for the grant for 2019 is being submitted. For APAB, we are submitting an application for $5,000 or more. And I think all of you probably know that the NPUs were instructed to apply for $3,000, and then of course APAB $5,000. So the remaining money for the 2018 grant, there are a couple of things that we will have, I guess, before June 30th. Of course, that one is going to be our retreat. So monies from the remaining funds will go for that. Also, our monthly videography and e-news cost. You know, each month we have a videographer here. Sometimes we don't have the TV for Channel 26, so we have our own videographer, so we can put our sessions online. So out of the remaining general fund, we will be paying our videography fees and our e-news fees. I'd like to ask each chairperson and each delegate and alternate, if you're not a chair, if you would ask your chairperson to please send a list of your email addresses of your residents and members to APAB Atlanta. And the reason for that is we want to send our e-news to as many residents in the city of Atlanta as possible. And I know that each chairperson probably has at least 200 or 300 email addresses on their email listings. So if you would send those to us, and Debbie will forward it over to Jennifer, and then your residents can get your e-news directly. As I said, for 2019, we're applying for $5,000 for the grant. Our fiscal year ends June 30th, and of course, hopefully we'll get the $3,000 again for the general fund. So if we get the $5,000 for 2019 and the $3,000, we'll be operating with a little less than we did for 2018. In 2018, we received $7,500 for the grant funds. Do you have any questions?
And a suggestion, does planning, you have list of attendees at all of the NPUs. Can you send that information to Ian?
Yeah, absolutely. We keep a distribution list of all NPUs except F, so we'll send that to you.
That's fine. I just think that it would work better if we sent the e-news out directly to residents, and because it does indicate in there that, you know, they are welcome to come to our APAB meetings also, so that would be a good thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the last committee report is the executive committee. So let me provide that. The new executive committee met for the first time on January 6th. We did that by conference call and had an opportunity to introduce ourselves over the phone and share about our individual priorities for 2019. I believe that this new executive committee does have a shared vision to work for a much stronger APAB that supports and strengthens our NPUs, and by doing that, our neighborhoods. Specifically, here are the things that, as president, that I would like to focus on. First is to seek out the resources that strengthen NPU and APAB leadership capabilities, which could include training and our retreat and whatever other resources. I have a human resource background, so this is particularly important for me. I want to look for ways to strengthen our credibility and input on voting matters. Sometimes we feel in the NPUs that we vote, but it doesn't go anywhere. And so by building that credibility, we want to make what we do matter. I want to develop a communications framework where NPUs and neighborhoods can go to one source to get information on calendar events, policy changes, and then share with their networks. Those of us that are NPU chairs know that we get a ton of emails. Some are easily transmitted through our social media, and others take a lot of work, and it can be very frustrating. And then finally, to work with the Office of Zoning and Development to create networking opportunities with council members, city administration, and NPU leaders, and to partner with them to advertise our APAB appointment opportunities and calendar information on NPU agendas so that we can get the word out about the good things that the NPUs are doing and APAB's doing. So to that end, we agreed on a couple of first steps. First, to work with Councilmember Ide's office and others to reinstitute the APAB representative on the Renew Atlanta T-SPLOS Infrastructure Task Force with the goal of adding more citizen input into that process. I've already begun discussions with Councilmember Ide's office on that, and they seem to be open to the suggestions to get it going again. This is a good time to do this, as Renew is starting a series of public meetings to talk about prioritizing projects. And if you didn't see it there, the schedule of public meetings was on the table. So make sure that you have these dates and share them. We also want to work with the Office of Zoning and Development to put the Beltline TADAC vacancies announcements on the NPU agendas, or at least the flyer in their packets, so that we can get wide distribution. And then also to be actively engaged in the Center for Civic Innovation's NPU project and work to shape its outcome and sniff out misinformation and correct it before it becomes truth. We've got a lot of energy in this group. I think it's very exciting. We are going to have to take some baby steps because many of us are wearing several hats, but we are going to need your help. And so this is where your work starts. APAB delegates, alternates, and chairs, please report back to your NPU on the following items. First, make sure that those TADAC vacancies are announced. You've got the flyers. We'll get them to into your agendas or with your packets, but we do need to fill those slots. Second, there's the 2 resolutions that Jim Martin mentioned. They're going to be on the agenda next month. And make sure that your NPU knows that we'll be considering them and bring back feedback to us on where your NPUs stand on that. We are going to be convening a group to talk about how to improve the value of city department ambassadors who come to our NPU meetings. We had a lengthy discussion about the code enforcement officers. Some are terrific, some are not. And so I'm going to convene a group to talk about what those standards should be and then send folks out to meet with the different departments so that we can increase the value of their presentations. And I'm looking for volunteers to be on that group. Doesn't have to be a delegate or alternate. If you've got someone in your MPU that's interested, please shoot them my way. Ms. Bush also mentioned the upcoming Code Enforcement Academy starting March 16th. Please give your NPUs a heads up that that's coming. It sounds like a valuable resource for the NPU. As soon as we have the information available, we'll also shoot that out to you, but get folks thinking that that's going to be happening. And then I have, let's see, John's going to provide the list of the NPU mailing list directly to Ann or me, one or the other, and we're going to get that to Jennifer to build our Atlanta APAB list. NPUF maintains our own list. We've stopped using the city's distribution list, so I will get that to you as well. And at the executive committee, we did discuss moving our next meeting, which is currently scheduled for Super Bowl Sunday. We didn't think we'd have a very high turnout for that. So we're moving it to the following week, 4 p.m. at Manuel's Tavern in the Eagle Nest. That's a private room in the back behind the black curtain. The meetings are open to the public, and everyone is welcome. Some of the things that we'll be talking about are bylaw changes, the conflict resolution status, and the budget for this year. And then finally, I'm going to be out of town next month. We've had this trip planned for a while, so Eric's going to be chairing the meeting next month. If you have any suggestions for agenda items, could you please let me know and Eric know so that I can prepare them for the executive committee meeting. Any questions about my report? Any comments?
I don't know if it's the appropriate time, if it should go in another slot, but I thought we did discuss the identification badges. Is that something that's coming up?
Yeah, that's also on my list. John and I are in conversation about that. Okay. Upcoming events and meetings, I just mentioned the next APAB Executive Committee meeting at Manuel's. Our next APAB meeting is on February 16th, same time, same place, right here. Does anyone want to make any announcements from their NPU? Is Mr. Carr moving to the podium? And then I'm going to open up for public comment and other announcements.
The last meeting announcement that you just made was the general membership meeting for this group. However, for those people that want to get a good parking place, please come an hour earlier and join us at our APAB Committee on Council. And whatever agenda items you want to put on the agenda, if you want to reach Terry Ross ahead of time, please do so. So I'm encouraging people to get up an hour earlier.
Okay, great, thank you. It's tough on Saturdays, especially for me. Any other comments? A reminder, I mentioned this at the very beginning, some of you might not have been there. If our list of delegates and alternates is not correct, it's because your NPU chair did not fill out this form and send it to Jonathan for our records. So if you need forms, I've got some hard copies. We can send you an email, but we do need to get them in and make sure that we've got an accurate accounting.
And Madam President, if I could, I can list the NPUs that haven't. It's just a few. NPU E is in Echo, NPU I, NPU M, NPU N is in Nancy, NPU O, NPU R, NPU T, NPU V, and NPU W.
Great.
We need your delegates and alternates for APAB.
Great. If you heard your NPU call, get the form in. Okay. To the podium, ma'am. Okay. Okay. Are there any public comments or announcements? Please come to the podium.
Just one. In my other hat that I wear for Sherry Williams with Georgia Stand Up, National Transit Equity Week is going to be in Atlanta February the 11th through the 16th. And what transit equity does is educate the public as to the importance of public transit to the community across the nation. So on Monday, February the 11th, we're going to be at the Five Points MARTA station, and I will forward the flyer to you as soon as it is available. But it's Monday, February the 11th at 11 a.m. There will be a press conference, rally, and kickoff, and we're inviting the public. So Monday, February 11th at 11 a.m. And then on Tuesday, we're going to be at the West End MARTA station from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. with NPUT, handing out information about what National Transit Equity is and what it means to the community, and asking them to do a small survey. NPUS is also at Oakland City Station going to be doing the same thing on that Thursday. So I just wanted to let you guys know that the flyer is coming. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Good information.
Kyle Kessler, representing the Center for Civic Innovation. Since we last met, or since I presented in November during public comment, we did hold our meeting with NPU leaders. Many of the folks who were in this room were in attendance. We had 30 different attendees from 15 NPUs across the city. And we will be following up with each of those members who was able to attend, and new leadership. Obviously, there have been some changes to get sort of back running in this new year. We have also met with the Community Development Human Services Committee. Likewise, there were people who were in this room, back on December 11th. It ended up being basically an hour-long presentation plus Q&A. So if you have any questions, chances are City Council asked those as well. So please go back and look at the archives for Channel 26 on December 11th. We are looking to get on their agenda quarterly. We're looking for the first one to actually be a work session, so we're working with council staff to get that scheduled. But hopefully we'll be able to go in depth on what our project is regarding the NPU work. We are in the final stages of working with our hiring processes for our civic engagement manager, so hopefully within the next few weeks we'll have additional staff capacity on board to pull this project off. And one last update. We announced at the CDHS committee that we were going to be holding a public information event on February the 12th. Because of a scheduling conflict with the venue we were looking at, that's going to be moved. We don't have the date nailed down. We're working through the paperwork, but hopefully we'll be able to announce that on Tuesday, so just after the MLK holiday. And just a second to take my Center for Civic Innovation hat off. I did receive word this past week that Jim Schneider has been taken to Grady. He's at the hospital now in ICU. So I plan on going over there after this meeting if anyone else wants to join me, but he had an infection that they're working through some issues, but he has recovered or is recovering, but he is at Grady in visitation. He is able to accept visitors. So if anyone's interested, I'm able to provide that information, or if anyone wants to go after the meeting, I'm happy to walk over when anyone wants to visit with Jim. So any questions regarding the NPU project or what CCI is up to?
Thank you for the information about Jim Schneider. Was not aware of that.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Any other public comment? Is there any other business to come before the NPU today, or the APAB today? Whoops, wrong hat. If not...
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, is there a second? All in favor of adjourning about 2 minutes early, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned. If anyone's interested in debriefing this meeting, come join us at the front. Thank you.